Hello, I am Jack Timms. I'm in my third year at the University of South Wales studying media production. In my project, I will discuss how to set up a workshop for people who haven't had access or opportunities in life to learn about creative jobs, whether that be because they were ethnically discriminated against or it was just a factor of not being able to afford an education. The workshop allows them to learn how to make films and helps them get the skills to work in the creative industry. I will explore some of the learning techniques that are most applicable to my project and how they have impacted the world of education. Furthermore, I will show trial evidence of the format of the workshop I will do. Once the trial has concluded, I will evaluate my experience and see how I could improve. Finally, I will show my plan moving forward regarding setting up the workshop. For the past 3 years, I've reflected on what I wanted to do when I finished university, and what I have found is that I have two dreams. One, to become a director of photography in the creative industry, and two, to set up a workshop for people who are disadvantaged and to teach them how to make films. When the workshop is set up, there will be two parallels working together. One is the actual skills that the people who attend the workshop will learn, and two is using those skills to help people in the community. It was last year, in fact, that I was introduced to the work of the community. The people who need our help but aren't getting it. There are interviews out there that need to be filmed, short films that need to be made, and people that want to be heard over issues that have been pushed to the back of our minds. People in the industry frequently discuss diversity and representation. What stories are we telling and who is telling them? A report was made covering 2019 to 2020. Broadcasters, TV and radio combined appear to be employing a greater proportion of women, 48%, minority ethnic people 14%, and disabled people 7% in the UK than they did last year. Disabled people are underrepresented at all organisational levels. Overall, only 7% of television employees and 6% of radio employees were disabled, compared with 90% of the working age population. Minority ethnic people, and particularly black colleagues, are underrepresented in senior management across the industry. 8% of those employed by TV broadcasters in senior management roles are from a minority ethnic group, or MEG for short, compared with the national workforce average of 12%, which increases to 35% in London and 31% in Manchester. Black colleagues are more underrepresented in senior management roles than other minority ethnic groups, at 1%, compared with 3% of the working population. So bearing that in mind, my workshop will enable people to make that difference whilst they are learning, giving them an equal chance to get the job that they want in the creative industry. Now is the best time because of how the industry is changing. More jobs are opening up to people who aren't white or Caucasian. It is important to note that we have come so far and have improved over the years, but still, it could be better. I want to offer the finest experience possible due to the significance of this project and the potential influence it may have on the people's lives and the community. Since I lack teaching credentials, though, I have looked to theorists and educators for inspiration while I developed my workshop. In order to understand, we must first go to the beginning. Where it all began, way back in ancient Greece, the great philosopher Plato, a student of the great Aristotle, first pondered the question, how does an individual learn something new if the subject itself is new to them? Since Plato, many theorists have emerged, all with their own different take on how students should learn. Learning theories are like a set of principles that explain how well a student can acquire, retain, and recall new information. Despite the fact there are so many educational theorists, there are three labels that they all fall under: behaviorism, cognitivism, and constructivism. Behaviorism. The foundation of behaviorism is the notion that learning is external to the learner and independent of them. A behaviourist views the learner as a blank slate who needs to be given the material to be learnt. I mean, this is why babies are often the main subject, and babies and toddlers are often the main subject of behaviourism. Cognitivism. Cognitivism, in contrast to behaviourism, emphasises the idea that students process the information they are given rather than simply reacting to stimulus. So it's a more developed stage. We're looking at people like probably between the ages of 5 up to 7, going into early teens, 10, 11. Constructivism. Constructivism is founded on the idea that we create new knowledge based on our own experiences and prior knowledge. As a result, each learner's experience is different. Students modify their conceptual framework by either considering earlier theories or clearing up misconceptions. I will focus on constructivism because it is the most relevant method for me. Then, within this idea of constructivism, there is a special style of learning called situated learning and community of practice. According to Thomas Sergiovanni, who uses this technique, learning is most effective when it takes place in communities. He argues that academic and social outcomes will improve when the classroom becomes a learning community and teaching becomes centered around the learner. In addition to schools, communities of practice can also be found in workplaces and organisations. This is perfect for me because one of the key things that I wanted to implement into my workshop to help the people learn the skills more practically is by getting them to help local charities who need the services but can't afford them. For example, to film an event, or perhaps they want to make a documentary to spread awareness of a certain problem in their community. Therefore, it is beneficial to both the people who are learning the skills themselves and to the charity organisations or community that needs the help.
I'm Rhys Bebb. I'm the Welsh Language Education and Training Manager at Screenlines Wales. So we're involved with thinking about long-term sort of recruitment within the industry. So that's involved with actually sort of live productions, but also going out to schools at the very other end of it, trying to from children aged 7 up to make them aware of career options within the TV and film industry. I've been at Screenlines Wales just coming up to 3 years now. We've been doing those workshops then. I've been in previous jobs, I've been doing similar sort of things. And integrating that, and before that I was a teacher, so you know I started going back sort of 12 years using film in the classroom, but I think my head thought I was having a DOS when I was getting the camera out, because he thought it was just a fun activity, but it was kind of like about different storyline, different storytelling techniques, engaging some pupils who struggled with writing, but they could actually convey things. So I've been doing sort of these things for quite some time in terms of like both in education setting. Now it's more formal thinking in terms of within the industry aspect of it. But I think we're always, although our main aim is to kind of like is obviously to benefit the industry. It's the fact of just understanding you don't achieve things by being really specific and trying to target 5 or 6 people and say we're going to put all our eggs in one basket. We have to have a bit of a blanket approach.
An American psychologist named Carl Rogers developed the humanist theory in the 1980s about how facilitative learning is a humanistic approach to learning. Humanism was developed to contrast cognitivism and behaviorism. The key perspectives of humanism are as follows. People have a natural craving to learn to fulfill oneself. It is a process of learning itself that is the most important. Through observation and exploration, the students can be in control of their own progress and improvement in skill. The teacher is a role model to help motivate learning, to guide them so that they can leave knowing what awaits them in the big world. In Rogers' view, the teacher is more than a source of knowledge. Rather they are a facilitator of learning. A teacher who doesn't follow the conventional model of instruction is called a facilitator of learning and encourage pupils while they study on their own. Teacher success is determined by their ability to establish positive relationships with their students. Roger proposed 3 core characteristics that a teacher should possess for facilitative learning to be successful. Realness. A teacher should be themselves and use their own personality when teaching. It fosters trust between a teacher and a student when a teacher is real with them. It is imperative for the teacher to be able to communicate their feelings rather than just being a dull, unexciting character. Prizing, accepting and trusting. Teachers should care about their students and accept their feelings, regardless of whether they assist or distract from learning. Through these characteristics, trust and respect are built. Empathy. Knowing how the student feels and how they perceive learning is a huge thing. The student must also possess certain traits in order to facilitate learning. It is essential that they are motivated, aware of the facilitative conditions that they've been provided with, and aware that the task they have been assigned is useful, realistic, and relevant. To improve me as a teacher, and to put some of those techniques into practice, I just had to dive in and give it a go. Luckily, I was given the golden opportunity to dive in and give it a go. I was in contact with a woman called Sarah who works for Screen Alliance Wales, and she needed a bit of assistance with a workshop.
Okay, so my name is Sarah O'Keefe. I am the English Language Education Training Manager at Screen Alliance Wales. We were a company set up by Bad Wolf to try and get young people, or all ages actually, into the industry by doing school outreach, workshops, work shadowing, job vacancies, that sort of thing. And we work with people from age 7 to 67.
Now, just as much as the way you teach, the location also has a huge impact on how well the students learn. There was this amazing youth centre in Butte Town called the Pavilion Hub, which was perfect because the place embodied what I wanted to aim this workshop towards. Local communities, unfortunately, don't get many great opportunities, but because of facilities like the Pavilion Hub, they can try activities outside of their comfort zones.
So we are based in Splot, and we've got we've not got a lot of people from the local area, so we've not really got a lot of people from Butte Town, Grangetown or Splot working here, and that's our remit. You know, it's trying to get those people into the studios and working. Essentially, it's long-term goals. You know, we're starting at age 7, you know, so it's not going to be, you know, it's going to be another 10, 12, 13 years for those people. But, we spoke to people from communities and we said, oh, we've got this great facility. And they said, we don't know you, so why would we come to you? So we were like, oh, right, okay. So we have to go to them. So it was about making contacts in the local communities so that we could go to them to build our relationship up, because why would they come to us, rightly so. So it was making contacts in the community. So Butetown, Grangetown, Splot, to try and get out. And so it was choosing those central hubs that community already knows. So if we're there, then someone must trust us to be there, and it just so happens, for example, so we've been to Grangetown, into the Grangetown hub and the Grangetown pavilion, and they're two great focal points for local communities. They're already used a lot. We've been there, but also Butetown just happened to have a lot of technical equipment, like the studio and the camera and the sound and the lighting. So that's perfect for us. So getting into those places, trying to build up those relationships has been like really, really key.
UCAS is an organisation that helps young adults all over the country send admissions to different various colleges and universities. They have done research into how your surroundings affect the way you study. According to research, learning environments are extremely important for student achievement. Learning ability can be impacted by a number of things, including seating, light, noise, and even colour. Positive learning environments have been linked to increased motivation, engagement, and general learning ability in students. On the other side, it will be far more challenging for students to retain information and maintain their attention in bad learning environments, such as those that are uncomfortable, loud, or full of distractions. In light of this, I would say the Pavilion Hub is a positive learning environment, as it is a practical-based workshop and not an academic setting whereby the people don't have to retain much information. Then it means we don't have to worry about seating, lights, noise and colour. However, I will say that I think it offers a warm, vibrant look that feels inviting to all. The students shouldn't get distracted if they know that they will be involved in the process. It is more engaging that way. Therefore, we knew that holding this workshop there would bring more people to engage with us and be open to the idea that there are more relevant jobs available in the creative industry, no matter what you might want to pursue in the future. The first obstacle was that I didn't know what equipment I was going to be working with. So I needed to go down there and have a look for myself. So that's what I did. I wanted to feel a little prepared and that I knew what I was walking into. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to run an effective workshop because I wouldn't know how to use the equipment myself. On the day of the first session, I felt a sense of excitement as well as nerves. I had no idea what to expect. I didn't know if the people would like me or if they would want to learn at all. So I just took a moment in the room. There was this silence before the storm. My adrenaline was kicking in as the session start time was drawing closer. So my plan for the first session was to show them how to set up the equipment, and then they would try it themselves, going through lighting, video and sound. To help them get familiar with the different roles, I had them set up an interview scenario. Seeing what those lads were able to learn and put into practice in quite a short time, I was rather impressed. I was intrigued by how they were able to get in front of a camera and do the interview themselves, which I guess is quite reflective of our modern society, because nowadays we have people on TikTok who can just like stand in front of a camera and they're creating videos all the time. So I guess that had a massive impact on how well the workshop went and their confidence, because they're used to that kind of background. We initially planned to get staff on site to be the subjects of our interviews, but that ended up not being the case. Some of the lads actually showed promise because we were genuinely impressed. Me and Sarah actually agreed that they should get a certificate of recognition at least.
So I started here in 2018, and previously I was an English teacher. So when I joined Screen Alliance Wales, it was already up and running, doing, the sorts of things that we do. But I came on board, and as an English teacher, I was never allowed out of the classroom for any sort of trips. So I wanted to make sure that the workshops that we were doing had a value back in the classroom in schools. So any workshops that we deliver, we link them to the curriculum. So we've got a new curriculum in Wales that's come into statutory sort of requirements this year. And we link our workshops to that curriculum so that it's always worth it for the teacher. So it's not just like a trip.
We see a bit of an issue at the moment, sometimes I think, where some schools are adapting to being sort of like non-fiction documentary, sort of, or making articles using video. And then when it's non-fiction, we see a lot of people get bogged down with kind of thinking that if it's non-fiction, we just tell things in an order. But you still need a narrative. There's still a story to a documentary, and I think that's something we're kind of trying to introduce and sort of like to highlight and make, just raise the standards a bit.
Looking back at what I have learned and what has worked for me, I would say that to get the most out of the students, really, you need to connect with them at their level. And seeing as I wasn't that much older than them anyway, I remember what it was like to be in their shoes. So I could just be myself around them. I mean, in the beginning, I talked a little bit about myself just so that they felt comfortable around me and that they could trust me. And I was initially quite nervous, but once I had my bearings and had an idea of each person, I got into the swing of things. I would say in terms of the teaching techniques that I took on board the most, it was situated learning. That was because I was showing them the equipment whilst I was talking about it, and I wanted them to start using the equipment as soon as possible, which is why we set up the interviews. I also was following the 3 characteristics of Roger's view, which really helped my confidence in the beginning. Like when making any film, there was always a pre-production stage. Documents need to be completed and things need to be approved. The same goes for workshops. Seeing firsthand the planning process with Sarah, I have been made aware of some of the things that I should do that I didn't really think of before. Finding the right location for one, for the workshop, and applying for funding and legal issues, etc. It's all necessary. Before you physically start putting the workshop in place, it is a good idea to survey different regions and towns to see how many people would be interested. And this will also give a good idea of future business opportunities too. For instance, when applying to use a space, it is better to seek through the Art Council and email the appropriate contact of the building where I want to hold my workshop. This helps to ensure that I have a chance of securing the space. If need be, many of these types of places enable you to book a space for a certain amount of time and hire it out. Also, it is important to consider permissions from the parents. If I plan to include children in like the filming side of things, that's a whole nother legal thing. So you need to get permissions for legal reasons. It is a huge help having someone assist you just to make sure everybody is paying attention. And if people need help with anything, then they have another person to talk to. And as I can't be everywhere all at once, and that was the case with Sarah. So whilst I was with two of the lads, she was with another two of the lads. And so it really, really helps. So once you get the hard part out of the way of teaching them the equipment, really it can go anywhere at that point, which I think is amazing.